Shalom WJC family. It's time for our weekly Torah Talk. This week in Shul, we will be reading parsha Shoftim from the book of Deuteronomy. In it, we are reading lots of the laws that Moses is giving the people that they should keep once they enter the land, since he won't be with them. And we have some interesting rules here about guilt. I don't mean like guilty, innocent, although that is related, but guilt, this concept of guilt that we carry with us. For instance, in the case most famously of what we would call manslaughter, right? Someone who has not been someone's enemy before ultimately causes their death accidentally. Here we have the famous example given in the parsha from Devarim 19, verse 5. A man goes with his neighbor into a grove to cut wood. As his hand swings the axe to cut down a tree, the axe head flies off the handle and strikes the other so that he dies. That man shall flee to one of the cities and live. Otherwise, the blood avenger, the family of the person who killed, might come and kill him. This would be bad for everyone. Innocent blood would be shed, the text goes on to tell us, and this would be unacceptable to God in the place where you're going to go. The question is, why is this blood avenger going to kill the person? It was obviously an accident. So the whole text is questionable, doesn't make sense. But I think it may have something to do with guilt, the whole concept of guilt. I was thinking about this one because we're coming to, we just started the month of Elul, we're coming towards the high holidays where we will stand with our guilt before God, confessing the things that we think have led us off of the path God intended for us. And ultimately, guilt is a difficult emotion, and often unproductive emotion. So too, why do we come before God and declare our guilt often, or our guilty feeling, often when it's not even real. It's not something that we're guilty for, something we actually did wrong. We often feel guilty for things that happened, but maybe were outside of our control. So I want to give you an example that I found very powerful from this book, Life Lessons. Two experts on death and dying teach us about the mysteries of life and living, by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. This was gifted to me by a congregant, for which I'm very appreciative. Very powerful anecdotes. So David Kessler is telling the story of a woman who is getting married. She's asked her friend to be the maid of honor, and her friend is so honored. Sheila is so honored, and Sandra's getting married. And so she offers the day of the wedding to drive Sandra to the wedding. And so she goes to pick her up, and Sandra comes down, and she's got her dress, and she's got all this stuff, and it's raining, and she's very upset. And Sandra says, "Let me drive." And, Sheila, the maid of honor, says, no, you can't drive to your own wedding. That's not a good idea. Sandra won't take no for an answer. She said, it'll take my mind off of the things that are bothering me. And so finally, Sandra relents and allows the bride to drive. Off they go to the church, and they're talking about details of the wedding. They're talking about how hard the rain is falling. All of a sudden, the car slides out of control and slams into a lamppost, and the bride is killed instantly. The maid of honor survived, physically at least, but with just a few minor bumps and bruises, but her psyche was gravely wounded. And so David Kessler is counseling her, and she's carried this guilt with her, and he suggests, he asks all the questions that we would ask someone who is feeling guilty without necessarily having reason. Do you absolutely know that Sheila would have survived if you had driven, right? She says, why, if only I had driven, Sheila would be alive. He says, are you so sure of that? Did you know there's going to be a car accident? Did you know she was going to die? Did you know the axe head, metaphorically, was going to fly off the handle and kill your neighbor? He said, no, but I lived and she didn't. So what David Kessler tells her to do is to think of if it were reversed, right? If your friend had lived and you had died and you knew that your friend was racked with guilt 20 years later, what would you say to her about the incident? And so she took her time and she pulled herself together and she said, I would say I was the one driving. I was responsible for my decisions. No one forced me to drive and no one could have prevented me. It was my wedding day and I wouldn't have taken no for an answer to driving. I would say it wasn't your fault. It just happened. I don't want you to waste your life feeling guilty. It's a very powerful story, I find, because most guilt is like that. Most guilt is about things that are out of our control. And yet the Torah, understanding the human nature to assign blame, even when it's misplaced or there shouldn't be any at all, needs to provide these cities of refuge for this accidental manslaughter. Today we don't have cities of refuge. Today we have the high holidays. We have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, this month of Elul that leads up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And this is our time to think about what are the things we feel guilty about. Where is our survivor's guilt? Where are we placing blame upon ourselves or upon others when maybe things were nobody's fault? Where are we placing blame on the wrong person because it's easier than admitting where the blame really belongs, whether that's on ourselves or someone who we have no power over or control over, and therefore can't find a way to find remedy for that actual responsibility. This period of Elul, as we are reminded by this passage in Shoftim, is a period of not only recognizing guilt, but also exploring where that guilt comes from, right? Guilt is a block in our relationships, right? As long as the bridesmaid was feeling guilty about her friend, how was that must have been affecting her other friendships, her ability to trust herself, and the decisions she was making, her ability to move forward in relationships and love and in life. So too, we are all under the thumb of guilt, sometimes well-placed and often, I would say, probably a majority of times unfounded. And this is our time of year to reflect, to look at all those things, all the places we in our lives where we are assigning blame to others or assigning blame to ourselves, and really thinking through if they are real or not. We're told that the person would stay in the city of refuge until the reign of the Kohen changed. The Kohen Gadol changed. The idea is not this misplaced blame wouldn't last forever. Why, when the person leaves the city of refuge, would the blood avenger not hunt them down right then and there? Because this misassigned blame shouldn't last forever. It can't last forever. And this is our time to help get out from under the thumb of our own sense of guilt over things that we've done and things that we did not do, and ultimately through that find our way back to positive relationships, to love, to understanding with our friends, our family, even ourselves, and of course, as is the theme of the high holidays, with God, with our Creator, who is calling to us all the time, but maybe our own blockages of guilt are keeping us from being whole with integrity in that relationship as well, keeping us from getting on the path that God intends for us. And so I hope this Elul is a time of healing for you, for your family, for our community, for the entire Jewish people. We need it right now as much as ever. May we go with strength and love and kindness for ourselves and others into this high holiday season. Shabbat Shalom.